Now let's talk about serverless architecture. So one of the great things about service-oriented architecture is basically your code is just connecting to a vendor using an API call, and that allows you to do things such as send emails, send SMS messages, be able to deal with like AI services, database services, that type of deal. One of the issues though with service-oriented architecture is that you're not really getting compute out of service-oriented architecture. So all of this is kind of like where you have your data and the data or the file or whatever else really doesn't change. I mean, the CPU does need to burn a couple of cycles in order to send out the SMS message or something like that, but there's no real modification to what you're doing, right? You tell it to send out the email, it sends out the email. You tell it to send out the SMS message, it sends out the SMS message. That's about it. There's nothing really transformational there. Well, the thing is, for a lot of what we need out of the solutions that we're creating, many times we do need things, especially like files, to be manipulated in some way. So think about this with something like FFmpeg. So FFmpeg you can use to encode things like video files or to modify image files, right? So basically, when you can send a file to FFmpeg, and it can be, let's say, a 4K video file, and you can say, well, I want this to be able to be shown on mobile devices, so I want you to change this to a 144p a video file. Right? And that is something that the CPU, very CPU intensive task, in order to re-encode 4K video down to 144p. Or imagine with images, right? You know, you get large images in, you want to shrink them down so they can be shown on a mobile screen, you want to reformat them, that type of deal. That's a compute intensive task. And for a long time, that was not part of one of the things that you could purchase, again, basically through an API call. So what we get with serverless architecture is basically companies came out, again, Microsoft Azure and AWS, and they realized that there are these very compute intensive tasks that people needed done that were kind of the same. Right? Lots and lots and lots of companies need videos re-encoded. Lots of companies need images to be modified. Lots of companies need different things. And so basically the idea here is where you can take a file. So basically what you do is you take a file, you send it to the serverless architecture with whatever parameters. So I want this to be modified in such and such way. Basically, it uses its compute to process that file, and then it ships back to you what the results are. And that's basically what we're talking about with serverless architecture. Now, some people think it's really funny because they say, everything needs a server. There is no serverless architecture. Everything needs a server. And the important thing to understand here is that that's getting a bit autistic. That's just not what we're talking about. Oh, it's only funny because it's so frustrating, right? We're not talking about really that there's no servers involved. Obviously, there have to be servers involved. But when we talk about serverless architecture, we're talking about you don't own the server. I don't have to set up a server with FFmpeg installed and create all the configurations so that my script can communicate with that server so that I can re-encode the files. I don't have to create a server, again, for images to be manipulated or that type of thing. What I can do is I can simply make this API call up to a solution that provides whatever, again, this compute intensive task is, and then it will simply return me the results back. So this can be very useful for things like machine vision. Again, it's actually interesting right now, something to think about with latency. Do you want to build your own machines to deal with machine vision? You can actually, at this point in time, you can take a video stream. So you can have a little IoT device. You can stream the video up to like Microsoft Azure's servers. Microsoft Azure has something called cognitive services, and they do image recognition or video recognition. You can literally have Azure processing in real time the video stream that is coming to it. And then basically you've put in parameters that you're looking for. Every time you see a license plate, return back what the license plate is. If you see somebody that's, moving in an area of the frame that they shouldn't be moving, send back, again, an alert that maybe there's a burglar in an area, something like that. Tabulate how many trucks you see and how many cars you see, right? So that's very CPU intensive task, right? Again, it's computer vision. So it's taking the images coming in, it's processing those images for whatever it is that you're looking for, and it's returning the result. Instead of you building an OpenCV server to deal with that, you might just simply deal with Microsoft just because it's easier for you to do, because again, you're not dealing with the CPUs or anything like that. And so what's great there is you get all of that CPU type performance, right? That compute type resource performance. But again, you're not worried about the operating system. You're not worried about viruses. You're not worried about configurations. You're not worried about CPU fans failing or that type of thing. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about serverless architecture.